Okay, I'd like to do a video today exploring gene keys 50 and gene key 3. These are programming partners. They're the second half of my activation sequence, and I've been meaning to do a video about them for a little while. It seems like, and I heard this recently, that the second pair of programming partners here tends to be a little bit more in the unconscious of the personality, whereas these two, the life's work and evolution, tends to be more of our outward-facing self that we kind of know a little bit more consciously. And that seemed true to me because as I was contemplating these two, it felt much more difficult to kind of like get a grasp on them in a way that was like satisfying to the intellect. So couldn't get there. I read them through a number of times, and it's kind of like on that evolutionary edge where it's asking me to open to something a little deeper and a little bit less defined, a little bit less known. So saying that, bear with me as we explore the unknown, and I'll do my best to call on my gifts of precision and inspiration as we dive into gene key 50 and gene key 3. And it's important to remember, again, that what we are essentially is not expressed in the gene key profile. What we are essentially is infinite, free, perfect, radiant being that has never come into expression. But that being expresses out as this multifaceted reality, and the gene keys are a map of that expression. And so as we join here, we're shining that pure awareness, that pure I am presence upon the gene key profile, and seeing what insights we can harvest about our expression. What the pure awareness can harvest of knowledge of itself, of its isness expressing outward as this and that. So gene key 50 goes from the shadow of corruption through the gift of equilibrium to the Siddhic light quality of harmony. And gene key 3 goes from the shadow of chaos through the gift of innovation to the Siddhic quality of radiant innocence. Now these are so interesting. And they go together. They're programming partners, meaning they're on opposite ends of the circle of the hexagrams of the I Ching. So they embody opposing energies. And when we understand opposites, we are clarified about the underlying truth that encapsulates both. It's similar to the two hemispheres of the brain and how they play off one another. The two eyes, which bring perspective by having two different lines of vision. And two people, when they come together in shared communal understanding, we come to deeper truths, deeper insights. And it's funny that that should come up, because this was an insight that I've been having about myself as I contemplated these. The line 2 in my profile here is called marriage. And this isn't just a man and a woman or lovers, intimate relationships, although it does also relate to that, but also any intimate connections of two minds, the two joining in one shared understanding, is an important part of my radiance, meaning what makes me healthy, what makes me feel radiant, come alive, and filled with life force. And I think a big part of that for me is to be seen by another, to be understood. And when we take that into account with the gene key 50, which is about corruption or equilibrium. Corruption is when fear is corrupting the flow of information. Could be between two people, but it could just be our perception of the world. When we're looking from fear, we're seeing a very limited picture of the world. We're not seeing the full picture, the subtlety, the layers, the nuance, the beauty. We're not seeing the inherent equilibrium. Fear tends to make us feel us and them, or myself and the world, separate, fighting, conflicting. And this feeling of fear leads to corruption because it doesn't allow for a free flow of honest communication. Fear says, don't share what you really are. Put on a mask. Show a strategic front. Because you can't trust the world. You can't trust others. It's ironic because the justification we use for that is corruption. So you see how the shadow feeds into itself. Because the world has been expressed in a fearful way, then we look around and we see fearful images, and we justify, I need to act in a fearful way. The data is being corrupted. We aren't seeing the truth of reality. We're seeing the human miscreation out of fear. And this leads to chaos, the shadow of the third key. The world looks chaotic, like every man's out for himself, every woman, every child, that no one can be trusted. Diving into the shadow is hard work. Even just expressing it now, it's like, I don't want to. I don't want to look at it. That's the funny thing. So I can feel here, it's like not wanting to take responsibility for the darkness of the world, for the corruption, not wanting to take responsibility for the chaos that we see around us. And that is the shadow. Because when we deny it, when we say it's not my fault, then we go into unconsciousness and we either play the victim of the corruption that we see, meaning we play innocent, but victim, innocent victim, which is not taking responsibility. Or we see corruption and we say, it's not my fault, and then we play the game to win, to get one up, to try to win at life, to try to get one over on life and on others. And this is what forms the hierarchy of human experience, is fear, fear of chaos, leads to this justification that we need to control each other. We need to control the world. Otherwise, chaos. But we don't see that it's the fear that's creating it, and the attempt to control it just represses it down again and again and again, and creates victims, and it creates rulers and subjugators and slaves. And we don't want to look at it. We say that's just how life is. That's just the way it's always been. That's the way this world is. Get used to it. So whether you're playing the victim or you're playing the persecutor, you're still part of the shadow frequency. But the gene keys don't leave us there. These gene keys, once we start to take responsibility for what we're seeing, we start to be lifted out of the never-ending cycle of despair. In the case of Gene Key 50, those who have this in their profile, they have a natural sensitivity towards corruption. Not just on a mental level, but they can feel honesty and dishonesty energetically. Now, on one hand, this can make you feel like a victim of dishonesty, of corruption. But as we start to rise out of that, we become more aware. And we see that we actually contain every appearance. We can see that this is actually a profound gift, that we can bring this harmonizing influence to the world by holding space, by not reacting, by not playing a role in the game of hierarchy and competition. But we see that it's an illusion. These are just ideas. They're actually energies. And those with this gene key start to realize that by being honest, by standing in truth, we have a profound ability to cut through corruption and create a clean energy field around us and in our relationships. Part of this can be about exposing the shadow. My mind is telling me this, but I know it's not true. Isn't that funny? Isn't that weird? And that again comes back to this chaos and innovation, where it becomes more about play, the play of relationship, the play of interaction, the play of life. When we can be honest with each other, it clears the air. It brings ease and a sense of balance, like everyone's being seen. Nothing's hidden. In A Course in Miracles, it says there's no such thing as secret thoughts. What does this mean? It means even if we think, only I know about this, only I know that I hate that person. Is it true? No. Our thoughts create our behavior. Our thoughts create our experience. So when we're cursing someone in our mind, it is affecting that appearance of another person, and more primarily, it's affecting our perception of reality. We're seeing a hateful image rather than the purity of another holy, sacred being. And do we think that's reality? No, that's just our mind telling us what's going on, and we'll see what we believe. So when we get honest with ourselves, and we get honest with each other, we create a field of equilibrium where everyone feels seen. Everyone feels known, understood. No one has to be perfect. That's not what this is about. But it's about no more secrets. We can see this on the world stage as the unconscious is rising into our vision constantly nowadays, with the internet, with everyone having a camera, with whistleblowers, with social movements of conscience coming into the world, and it can look like everything's getting worse. But don't we want to see the corruption so that we can move towards equilibrium? That's what's happening. And until everything is seen, we can't move into innovation. Innovation on top of a bedrock of unconscious chaos doesn't work. It's just a repression mechanism. But once everything is starting to be seen and it's coming to the light, hey, it brings this profound equality too, like we're all part of this mess. We're all part of this earth mess. It's humbling. None of us are so righteous. And we don't want to be. Because the righteous are sitting on layer upon layer of unprocessed guilt and shame. Don't we want to be free of all that and not condemning each other and forcing each other to play the roles of the shadow characters because we don't want to look at it ourselves? And we see that innovation cannot come until we're willing to look at everything and see it all for what it is. And then we're all on an even playing field. That's again this 50th gene key, the Illuminati. From the fear frequency, we think the Illuminati is a dark cult of world elites that are controlling everything. But that's fear. Nothing controls us because we are pure light. Fear is the only thing that can control us. And so you see these dark conspiratorial stories. They are doing the very thing that they're condemning because they are so often just coming from a deep-seated fear frequency. But this 50th gene key is part of the ring of Illuminati. And here we see that the Illuminati is the light radiance that shines from the subtle realms, the higher octaves of reality, that ensures overarching harmony. Because even in the shadow frequency of humanity, it can look very chaotic from up close. But that we see that on a cosmic scale, on a global scale even, let's say on a global scale, if you go up into outer space and look back, there is a profound equilibrium and order to even the human expression on the planet. You can't escape it, although the shadow does its best to deny that harmony. So this shows again how the step from the shadow to the gift is not a doing, it's just a realization of what's true. Equilibrium is what is true when we stop insisting upon fear and corruption and chaos. And we're freed into an innovative place, a place of play, a place of joy. And we've all experienced this when we're in a group. Think of the playground, and everything's just play. Everything's flowing. Everything's moving. People, every body is going exactly where it wants to go. There's not rules. If you want to be there, you go there. If you want to be here, you be here. Kids know how to do this. They flow with it. They respond. And then some sort of issue arises. But it's a play issue. I mean, it's just for fun. But still, a play issue arises. And then people are so free to move around this problem. It's a play problem. It's just a problem. It's like a problem, like a puzzle. And they move around it, and life solves the problem on its own accord, just in the joy of exploring it. This is what we all want, really, isn't it? Just to play. And problems cannot withstand playful, inquisitive exploration. They dissolve in front of that. So can we give ourselves permission in a world that appears chaotic to play? And can we give ourselves permission in a world that appears to be full of corruption to be the one that represents equilibrium and honesty? Hey, when you do this, it makes me feel like this. Simple. But it is vulnerable, isn't it? To be honest. But honesty comes when we see that we didn't create ourselves. We just are the way that we are. It's natural. We are an expression of this planet, waking up, evolving into greater and greater consciousness. So, is it someone's fault that you are the way you are? Is it a problem that you are the way you are? No. It's innocent. Completely and totally innocent. Even the shadow frequency is innocent. That's the paradox. You'll start to see the innocence of all characters. The innocence of Donald Trump. The innocence of everyone who triggers you. You start to see the child within all characters. The child. And innocence and harmony, two sides of the same coin. Harmony is when you've become so equipped in equilibrium, in honesty, that the honesty has shown you the innocence of all beings, of all expression, of all experience. And you know now that the self that you are has never even left harmony. It's impossible. Again, it's the paradox of the journey that leads you to the place you have never left. The innocence that you have never left. The harmony that has never been threatened. But the gene keys aren't just about that transcendent light. They're about how does that transcendent light express itself in a human expression. And we have to be honest here that we largely don't know. I don't know. Just learning. Just exploring. Just asking for it to come into expression, to flower here in me. And what I'm feeling from this exploration is an inspiration, especially to explore equilibrium in relationships, which to me means a commitment to always clearing the air. I remember when I was growing up, I heard a few people say, "Don't go to bed angry. And it's loving to go to someone that you care about if you feel that there's a problem between you. It's loving to resolve that, not to ignore it. Say, well, they don't want to go into that. I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to be a problem. I don't want to upset them. It's really ourself we don't want to upset. We don't want to burden. But we start to see that anything we ignore just comes around and around and around. And I feel that this gene key 50 relates to this sensitivity to other people and the sort of social environment. Could be a couple people in your kitchen. It could be the world stage, politics. It's really all the same thing. But when we become willing to look at the dynamics and resolve our little part of any imbalance, rather than letting them fester, we find that we create an aura of equilibrium, an aura of harmony around us. And eventually, this harmonious aura becomes so compelling in and of itself that whenever anything comes into it, instantly awareness goes to it, and playfully we innovate a solution to it by facing it head on, being willing to dance with it a little bit and relate to it and let the moment bring the right expression, the right words, the right compassionate relating to it. And eventually we'll find that certain energies of corruption, certain energies of chaos can no longer even be in our field, can't be around us anymore. And then those who are around us benefit from this harmonious field that we've cultivated within ourselves, this harmonious resonance, because no darkness, no dishonesty, no corruption can last long in the face of commitment to equilibrium and innovation, commitment to the harmony of all things, to the innocence of all things. What a gift. It's really a gift to ourselves. Because first and foremost, this cleans up our experience. Secondarily, it has a beautiful impact on everyone who comes around us. So really, these gene keys continue to be a profound exploration for me. How does gene key 50 and gene key 3 express here? It's a contemplation, and there's not really a knowing of what they're about. But more and more there's a trusting and a inspiration to continue opening, because it's really starting to be seen that everything is good. And what a beautiful thing to see. Now, how does that goodness want to express more skillfully through me? That's an infinite exploration, all the way to upper levels of Siddhic mastery. And there's really no one to do it, to accomplish it, to make it happen. Only through surrender and opening into the joy of what we are can we have any hope of expressing the highest qualities of our potential. Isn't that how it should be? Isn't that how we would want it to be? Do we really want the scared little ego child to be responsible for the whole thing? I don't think so. That would be very scary. So luckily, there's a giant, harmonic, and innocent order to the whole thing that's carrying us all. And it's really just trusting that. That's all we can do. It's so simple. And yet, its effects can be so profound. So let's meet the people closest to us with this trust and let it ripple out from there. Let's meet the people we live with, our closest relationships, the people we work with this trust, and let it radiate out from there. And as we go, we hold more and more globally, more and more universally, and there's already a great host of beings that are holding all of this on the most grand of scales, and we can trust that. So you don't have to do it. You just have to play and trust the underlying harmony of all things. Thank you so much for joining me here. I'd love to hear any feedback, any reflections. As I said, these two gene keys are still such a mystery to me. So anything you see, please share it below. And I look forward to connecting with you again. Thank you.